Not yet. We're
Yeah.
just Zoom's not gone to Facebook yet.
Okay.
Bear with me. And we are now live on Facebook, Erica.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Judith. My name is Erica Chisanga. I'm chair for the Cambridge University Hospital BAME network. And the reason why I joined this network and also took on the mantle to be chair is because of the passion that I have about issues that are affecting people from a minority background. Yes, I am in a leadership role, but that doesn't mean that when I'm in a leadership role, I should forget about those other people who may not have a voice. I need to utilize or use my leadership role to ensure that other people also have a voice, and any of the issues that they may have are brought to my attention, so that I've got a bi-directional conversation between senior leadership as well as my peers and those who don't feel like they have a voice. Now, the BAME network itself has been something that I hold very dear to me, and there are a lot of things that we have achieved through the network. I'll just briefly mention some of them, which will be talked about in more detail by my colleagues here who are on the panel, and I shall introduce them briefly. You know, we've got Tracy Cripps. Sorry, I keep saying Tracy Cripps. Tracy, you should always tell me that you're not Crisp. I've always worked with somebody with the surname of Crisp, so I always give you the surname of Crisp. So Tracy Cripps, there's Emil Brown, and on the panel who has joined us here is David Werrett. So going back to what I was going to say about what we have achieved in the network so far, or through the network so far, is CUH has become engaged in the East of England anti-racism strategy. We have also started working on a project for bullying and harassment, a project which Trace is going to talk about a little bit more. We've embedded the Culture Ambassadors program, which Emil is a part of, and he'll talk about that program. With the EDI team, we have started a reverse mentoring program, which a lot of our senior leadership have benefited from, as well as the people who are reverse mentoring them benefited from. Most people will be aware of the RES implementation group, that is the Workforce Race and Equality Standards. This is something that we use, you know, we have embraced, we've taken it and run with, so that we use it as a benchmark, really, to ensure that we are in alignment with what we're supposed to be doing for people of color. And then finally, although this is not an exhaustive list, we have also relaunched the diversity interview panelist program, where we had the inaugural training, which was a success, I must add. This took place on Wednesday. Thanks go to Ruby and Annesley, and anybody who is interested in becoming a diversity interview panelist can look out for more dates, because this is a rolling program. It's not a one-off, and you know, we want to make it business as usual for ourselves. So going back to what I feel has happened so far in CUH, and my reflections of the activities that have taken place in the Black History Month, which I would like to see continue happening. And this is, you know, all of these are golden threads within all of my, you know, what my passion is for being chair for the network. I think my reflections have been looking at the importance of engaging staff from the BAME network community. And this can be anywhere, anytime. We don't have to wait for the 827. We don't have to wait for a senior sisters meeting or anything like that, or a allied healthcare professionals meeting. Even as we're walking through the corridors, you meet somebody who happens to, you know, fit the criteria, or, well, not, I think that's not the right word to say, but somebody who you think would benefit from being in the network. Just a hello and getting to know them, and then telling them about the BAME network. They may decide they want to engage in the network. They may want to participate in the network as an ally. So the network is not only for people from Black and Asian minority backgrounds, but it's something that would like to embrace within the organization as a network to support workforce. My other reflection has been the importance of regularly sense checking commitment from our senior leadership and updating them on where we are. I do this a lot with David, but I think I could do it more. And the same with Roland. The other reflection, I think, has been remaining constantly aware of and utilizing the various resources available at our disposal. I think a lot of times we can easily think that for something to work, we have to have more money, more money, more money. Money is a requirement, but it's not the only resource that is at our disposal, and that is not the only resource that we need. So we have got the support from the Workforce Directorate. You lot, this team led by you, David, has been phenomenal, and without your support and the support of the EDI team, my passion wouldn't have continued being ignited the way it has been. The same goes to the comms team. My last but not least reflection has been that we need time to keep this agenda moving, not to do this at the edge of our desks. We are passionate, and I'm speaking for myself, I'm speaking for Tracy, and I'm also speaking for Emil. This is not just an asset for ourselves, but an asset for the organization. So Roland, David, Lorraine, you are in good company. I'll pass on the opportunity for Tracy to introduce herself, and yeah, and then we'll move on with the rest of the hour. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Erica. I thought I was going last, so I'm just going to offer Emil if he wants to go next. Happy to go, Emil, if you want to go. Shall I go?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm happy to go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, by the way, it's my birthday.
I was going to do
it. Anyway, yes, I'm Emil Brown. I'm one of the deputy co-chair BAME network chairs, I should say, but I'm also a cultural ambassador for the trust. Just a bit of a background about the cultural ambassador program, I should say. This derived from the RCN, Royal College of Nursing. It's based on some research done, I shouldn't say research, but previous and recent research, which demonstrated that the NHS staff from Black and minority ethnic BAME background often experience inequalities and discrimination and prejudice in the workplace, and that comes under the bracket of disciplinaries and disciplinary hearings as such. So in 2015, at a local level, a BAME activist, as a result of this freedom of information request, alerted the RCN in West Midlands, and over that representation in the employee relations process, there was an over-representation of the employee, and this is somewhat, which is still true today, as that it showed from the RES, which is the Workforce Race Equality Standards, and the Workforce Disability Equality Standards reports, demonstrate in addition that there has been some element of disproportionate impact on the staff from BAME background in relations to recruitment, appointment, and development and progression in the NHS. So this program was developed by the Royal College of Nursing and has now obviously been somewhat expanded across all trusts in the country to embrace this program. And I took on that mantle as part of the trust agenda in obviously addressing bias during the disciplinary hearings and unconscious bias, or and we a group of us were trained to do that. And for me, on a personal note, I felt that I was in a workplace which recognized and identified and those disproportionate disadvantages for BAME staff in certain areas of disciplinary process, to engage and have an element where it becomes a fair process, and that stereotypical thinking or elements of prejudice do not come into play when decisions are made. So being part of this process and actually taking part, being on panels and having an input and advising and making decisions with regards to this process, it gives you a good insight that certain peers are least understanding on certain elements from the BAME background, so cultural. I would say I'm somewhat blessed in a way that I've grown up with having, or I should say privilege in a way, growing up having various, being around various people from different ethnic groups. So there's an understanding, and as part of my upbringing is I've been always inquisitive to actually understand cultures, being a bit knowledgeable, from quirks on how to greet, mannerisms, behavior traits, all those aspects. And, you know, I can give you one example. Within the West African area, and predominantly Ghana, if you greet an older person with your left hand, it's rude. And you always have to greet them with your right hand. And the only reason is that your left hand is, for some reason, you use your left hand for other things. And that's regarded as somewhat the dirty hand. But that's something within one community, which is identified as Dutch. So if, let's say, we are on a disciplinary panel and that process identified that this person had a reaction towards someone using their left hand and not really understanding why that outburst, and they reacted in a way which was not appropriate and professional, and trying to understand why they reacted to that, and my input in explaining that cultural aspect and saying maybe they need to understand that, you know, that person didn't really know what they were doing because they don't know what their culture is. So obviously that's an education for them. And for me to be part of that process, so there's not an element of bias and understanding, but yet again, an education for that panel to take forward and make a decision which is fair, and not on the basis that, okay, they were rude or they were unprofessional in that context, but we approach it in a different way. So being on that panel, being a cultural ambassador, I think, and being part of that program and the agenda the trust wishes to push forward, I think for me is actually of great benefit for BAME staff and for learnings for staff who are not BAME and allies. And I think that in itself is beneficial across the board. So that's a bit of the cultural ambassadors. I'm not going to go a bit too much more based on time, but I do think, and if you've got any questions about that along the way, please ask. And yeah, that's a bit of a gist of the Cultural Ambassadors program within the CUH Trust. And I hope that's a bit informative for yourselves. And yes, and I would encourage people, there will be a request for more cultural ambassadors, and I encourage people to be part of that, to be part of a process and a positive, active, cultural change within the trust. So yes, thank you very much. Tracy, you can go ahead now and take the mantle.
Thank you, Emil, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
I was going to do it at the end, but happy birthday. Wow, there's so much to say. I've got all these pieces of paper in front of me in secret, which just to try and articulate some of the things that I wanted to get across. And it's just been so phenomenal. And I just want to begin right from the outset just by saying what an amazing week this has been. And working with Erica and Emil to bring this agenda together, present this program, has been an amazing privilege, actually. I am exhausted, as I'm sure we all are, because, it's just been so tough to do, but it's been so rewarding, so valuable, and I'm ever so grateful. I also want to say a massive thank you to all of the presenters who won't kind of get the benefit of hearing this, because this is obviously internal now, but they've all been phenomenal, and they've all contributed in vast amount to just the message and getting things out there. And the other thing I definitely need to say is, with absolute heartfelt acknowledgement, that none of this would have been possible without the phenomenal EDI team that we work with. So Monica, Katrina, Judith, you're here today hosting this session. Oh my God, we would be nothing without you, and you're all phenomenal and a joy and a pleasure to work with. And I also want to say that actually we've had a lot of support as well from VSM level. So, there's a David testimony, you're here right now, you've taken time out of your leave to join us. We've had support from Joan Milne, we've had support from Annesley, we've had support across the board from the very senior management level. And it's been absolutely wonderful. And that kind of leads on to one of the first reflections I want to make. So I'm going to try and stick to my points if I can. I'm probably going to go a bit skewed, but because this is just such an emotive and passionate subject, as you'll already have got a taste of from Erica and Emil. It's just so hard to articulate in 15 minutes or even in a sentence. There's just so much, but I'm gonna do my best. So I'm gonna make a series of reflections. So Erica, forgive me, because I am going a bit off piste here. You said I was going to focus on the bullying and harassment, but I'm going to try and pull on a few points and then link that in with some of the East of England anti-racist stuff that we've also been working on. So the first point I want to make really, and what struck a chord with me this week, and a multitude of our presenters actually touched on this as well, is allyship. And I think Hashi done an excellent job of talking about that, as did Sani. And, Sani, I hope, wouldn't mind me just reflecting again on his journey and how he spoke and emphasized a lot about the enablers and just how important the enablers were in his career on setting his his feet on the right pathway. So even if he was, you know, going to make a wrong decision, he had these people who took an active interest in his career, who took an active, you know, interest in his journey, and he had a lot of support. And without a doubt, Sani has achieved some amazing, you know, world-changing, responses. He saved lives in the work that he did, but he was only actually enabled to do that because of the support he received from CUH, from various senior leaders. So for me, allyship is key, and something that within the network, individually, I think we can all do more. And David, you're here, I'm speaking to you, I'm speaking to Roland, and, you know, Roland, thank you, you've agreed to meet us. You know, you've given us 1.5 hours out of your very busy schedule, and that's phenomenal. But, you know, that I hope is going to be the first of many in the development of our allyship journey with VSM level directors. The next point I want to touch on quickly is about talent management, and it's kind of linked to the first point of allyship, because Hashi Mohammed again done a fantastic job of really explaining the importance of social and economic currency. And I can tell you for myself, you know, and I think the lawyers, Sam and Nee, mentioned this yesterday or the day before as well, that actually you're told as a BAME person, you know, do good at school, you know, do well, sit your exams, you know, once you do well at school, you'll get a really good job, get educated. Actually, that's a really tiny part of the success and how successful you're going to be. Because the reality is, unless you have that social currency, unless you have that network, unless you have that infrastructure of support, it actually doesn't matter how well educated you are, you're just not going to make it. It's going to be exceptionally difficult. And I think Nee actually turned away from that course in law because, you know, of all of those barriers. You know, things might have been different for me because I, you know, engaged in a career in law as well in my journey before I came into the NHS. And, you know, my career could have been completely different if I didn't face those barriers. And I just wasn't prepared to take the risk at the time and qualify and not be able to practice because I didn't have pupillage. So I understand that issue of personal and social economic currency very, very well. I think in line with talent management, I also want to touch on recruitment, retention, and progression. Again, because all of this is linked to that. So the stretch assignments, how are BAME staff engaged with stretch assignments? We know that there is bias hinged into the recruitment agenda, and this work was very well referenced by you know, the esteemed author Roger Klein and all the research that he's done into the snowy white peaks of the NHS, and further most recently actually his 2 additional pieces of No More Tick Boxes and If Your Face Fits. So I would recommend anybody who has the stomach for the reading, because they're quite girthy documents, but they are excellent documents, and actually they feed into the East of England anti-racist strategy and highlight some of the pillars, which again I'm touching on now. So the talent management, the allyship. I think the third point I want to, and this is probably where I will labour most of my time in this 15 minutes, is about the network itself. This BAME network, and I know, David, before we came live, you said that you wanted us to share something about ourselves, and I hope how I feel about the network and how I feel about myself, my own personal journey here at CUH, comes out in this section of my talk. And the BAME network, I cannot stress enough the work that Erica, Emil and I engage in and what we do to make this network work. It's a phenomenal amount of work, emotionally, physically, and this, I must stress, is over and above our normal day jobs. Each of us, Erica particularly in a clinical role, but actually each of us are working way over and above our additional duties under the pressures of still delivering to the agenda of our regular day job. We are delivering to those expectations. We're managing that and supporting the work of the network over and above. A lot of the times we meet in our own, you know, in our own time, way outside of work hours, coming in early, staying on late, engaging and having discussions, planning things and making things happen. All of this sort of happening in our own time whilst delivering to expectations in our day job. So that, I hope, alone is testimony to give you an indication of just how important this work is. I also want to say that, you know, the people that are watching and tuned into this session, you know, we are the three leaders of the network. So Erica, our Madam Chair, supported by Emil and I as vice chairs. But actually this network is run by a whole series of leaders. And I hope, you know, I'm going to call out some names here, and I hope these people don't mind me mentioning them, because they are just phenomenally important in delivering the work of the network. And I can tell you that people like Ruby Lopez and Dyson, without these people, the network just wouldn't work. They're our unsung heroes. And in fact, Erica, Emil and I, if I can give us a plug here, we are unsung heroes too, because, you know, you're seeing us now in this snapshot, in this hour, but actually you have no idea of the amount of time and energy and effort and work that we do to support staff going through trials and tribulations right here in CUH right now. We could each bring you testimony of people that want to leave, people that want to resign because of their lived experience, people that are so stressed and feel unsupported. And actually, it's an unprecedented amount of work and effort that people like Dyson, Ruby, and us here talking to you today put into the network. So, David, I hope this is ticking your box in terms of why we do this. We do this because we care. We do this because we love the work that we do. We do this because we value the workforce, not just our BAME colleagues, but equally our white allies and our white peers. You know, we each of us have a role and a part to play in making the NHS work. And I think what we've seen from a lot of our presenters this week is that they represent a cross-section of society. I don't think any of them were actually NHS people. And you heard those stories. Those stories are happening right now in our NHS, right across the country, particularly in the east of England and right in CUH right now. And that's why Erica, Emil and I sort of do this. And we do this work with no recognition. We do this work with hardly any resources. We do this work with no protection. And when I say no protection, I mean that actually a lot of the issues that we're dealing with and the way that we support BAME staff that reach out to the network can be very, very emotionally draining. It's hard work. You often find yourself immersed in that staff story, and then you have to maintain that professional integrity, maintain that unbiased eye, support the BAME staff through their journey, and equally almost present and support sort of, so you're wearing almost two lenses. You're almost a bridge. So as a BAME person, you understand the journey, you feel the pain, because quite frequently, or even quite frankly, I think I can say, you've experienced that yourself in some way, shape or form, if not in your current role, but maybe in a previous employer. So you know exactly what they're talking about, you get it. But then you've got to help them engage and navigate the intricacies and the complexities, like Emil was talking about, some of the cultural impacts that this person is experiencing in a negative way, where staff policy and process is being used to manage them in a setting where maybe it was just a disparity in terms of cultural intelligence. So all of those things can leave us as leaders, the Ruby, the Dyson, the Erica, Emil and I, quite vulnerable in our own way in how we have to engage that. And so I know, I just want to say that with a caveat, I know that Monica and David, we've had these sorts of conversations before with Annesley, and I know that steps are being taken, but I do think it's important to raise that. I don't, you know, this is a positive conversation. So obviously I've touched on already some quite sensitive and delicate things, but this is a positive conversation. You know, we are moving the mountain. It's turning, and you know, I think Erica and Emil and I think we've undergone a journey during this pandemic, and where we are now, I think we're quite clear. So I'm just kind of end this bit by just referencing some of the things. We know what we want and we know what we don't want. So what we certainly don't want is a talking shop. We do not want to use this platform here now, or the 827, or any other platform that we engage with VSMs or any other body within this organisation, for example, as a talking shop just to express our woes. We have the RES that does that for us. We have the microaggression survey, which has validated the RES. We know what our woes are. You can speak, you know, we could bring an enormous amount of cases to explain what that is. We definitely do not want that. What we do want, though, and what we do know, is we want to develop and help create those psychologically safe spaces for BAME staff to talk about their lived experiences and to share their issues. And I think that's absolutely of mission critical importance, to allow BAME staff that psychologically safe space to talk about their experiences, and to allow our colleagues and our peers equally a psychologically safe space on the other side to hear and share those lived experience, develop the empathy, which then feeds into developing the cultural intelligence along the way. That is certainly something that, you know, we want to develop. I think the second thing that we want to do, you know, is also, as I said, creating that trust. Moving forward, and I know I've probably got about 20 seconds, is what we want is active engagement. We want active engagement moving forward. We're not interested in a talking shop. We're not interested in just going on about our woes. We want active engagement, active commitment, and the opportunity to feed into our own strategy that's going to tackle this agenda, feeding into the elements of the East of England anti-racism strategy. So all the things I've touched on about talent management, recruitment, retention, how we deal with all of that. We want engagement at VSM level. And David, you're here. I know Roland, and I think I saw a question from Ewan. We know there's VSMs that are listening. And this is why I'm positive. This is why I'm hopeful. We are moving the mountain. It's positive, changes on the horizon. But actually, this agenda, my final point, if I may, and I suppose I am pressing a button here, but I think I've never pressed it before and I have an opportunity to press it, so I'm going to press the button. And actually, I would challenge the VSMs to think about the BAME agenda and the BAME network seriously. And what I mean by that is every single element of the running of this hospital is led by there is senior leadership and senior management and resources to support it. So for example, we have a clinical director, we have a director for transformation and change, we have a director of workforce. Every aspect and element of the hospital that is significant and a high priority has VSM seniority backing behind it. I would like to challenge and put the question out there that actually I think our BAME agenda, if we're serious about this, if we're serious about turning the page, if we're serious about moving this mountain, I would like the opportunity to work at VSM level with a VSM, taking ownership and accountability for this agenda, working with us and the fantastic people we have like yourself, David, Joan, Annesley, to bring this agenda forward. So I'm going to stop there. I think I'm 3 minutes over. Apologies. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you so much, Emil. And totally agree with all the sentiments that have been shared there. And just to add to our, pack of resources for support, I can see a message here from Polly. She's from the staff creative wellbeing lead within CUH Arts. And that's a resource that we can all tap into, not just as BAME leaders, but also all staff within the organization if we need a safe space or a resource for protection, emotional protection, that sort of thing. But I totally lift up my hand with regards working with VSM staff, VSM leaders on this particular agenda, because it's one that is not an easy one to move because of the emotive nature of it. And it's really, really important that we get that consistent support going forward. Thank you so much. So David, would you like to come in at this point?
I would, but it's with some trepidation to follow the three of you, because you're a hard act to add value to on this agenda. I'm very aware that I'm owning my title as a snowy white, almost peakish sort of colleague, but hopefully a good colleague who's listening very clearly to what you're saying in an enormously compelling way. I hope I'm learning. I'll say a bit more about that in a moment. And I'm hoping we will act appropriately. We have acted and we will continue to act with your absolute support, guidance, and wisdom. So just a few words from me, because I think part of what I need to try and role model is to shut up and listen. That aside, I'm going to say a few things. I'm going to say congratulations on some superb events for Black History Month here at CUH. I've been on leave this week, but I've been able to catch up on Facebook with all the sessions, truly stunning sessions. And probably being on leave and being able to do it in my own time, at the pace where the learning is right for me, and go down some of the rabbit holes. So Emil, the session you chaired earlier in the week with Rob led me to the TED talk about the dangers of listening to a single story. Enormously powerful 20 minutes, just following on from Rob's talk. So thank you for the resources, putting the resources out there for me this week. It's been stunning. And I think probably, was it Rohan said in his session, some of the stuff we're talking about now wouldn't have been discussed a year ago or 2 years ago. So tragic events has led to a different culture where we can talk and engage in different ways. And I wanted to acknowledge that in this year's Black History Month events, that I think they've got deeper and more intense and realer, really highlighting the purpose of Black History Month around celebrating, challenging, acknowledging, appreciating the Black community who we work alongside here in the NHS, but also at CUH and in our society. So what else would I want to add to your words? So thank you for inviting me along today. Delighted to join you. I would say, in the spirit of the question I think you asked at the outset, Erica, was to explain our role. I think my role for you and the network and the wider community is threefold. One is as a human and a human who also a colleague of yours, is to listen and to learn. I think as your workforce director, as a workforce director in the NHS, where across the whole of the NHS, I was looking at some stats earlier, I think a quarter of the workforce of the NHS, and here in Cambridge, approaching a third of our workforce identify as Black, Asian, minority ethnic colleagues. My job as a workforce director is to be as much of a director for those colleagues as for the white British colleague, and that does mean understanding, to use the term that Rob has used, that some of us may be in a slightly different boat, going in hopefully the same direction, perhaps buffeted by the same waters, but there's a different experience and a different agenda going on, and I really have to learn about that. So as your workforce director, to learn and act, and to really engage with this agenda, unlike the way we have done for many years before. And just again, looking at the stats of the NHS, we've talked a bit about talent management. Here we are in NHS where there's very few people who wouldn't want to embrace the principles of Black History Month and some of those celebratory as well as challenging aspects of this month. But we're working for an organisation, a treasured organisation with 1.4 million staff, with 225 acute trusts across the NHS, where there are 8 Black chief executives, where there are 10 Black chairs of organisations, where there are 16 executive directors of nursing out of 225 of them. The stats, when you look at the numbers, are shocking. And the stats about the experience of our Black and ethnic minority colleagues also are shocking. So I'm saying my role is to absolutely listen, support, appreciate, understand, and act alongside you and guided by you. And just to close, I suppose, having brought those statistics into the room that are so clear through the RES action plans, is just to say the way you lead this agenda, Tracy, Emil, and Erica, is, as you said, Tracy, a positive one. There's every opportunity to say this is terrible and it will stay terrible. But you lead this with a very positive, hopeful spirit, and I hope we can understand that and treasure that as we go forward. And also it's very powerful when you hear people talking about the generational aspects of inequality. So I've heard people talk about parents and earlier journeys and Windrush and going way back. But I also very powerfully hear you talk about your children, about your kids, about the next generation, and how you're not just doing it for the now, you're doing it for the future. And Tracy, particularly, we've had some very powerful conversations about what it's like to be a teenage boy in 2021, even in 2021, what it feels like now. So I am saying too much. I'm a snowy white peak. I will shut up. I will listen, learn, and act meaningfully alongside you and with you. But just to celebrate what you've just done over this week is to engage a whole range of us in this agenda in a very meaningful way. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, David. And yes, although you have decided to stop talking, just your presence here speaks volumes. Yeah, it does speak volumes, because we've had this conversation earlier in the week that you are not at work. You have decided to take the time out of your personal life to come and show your commitment for this agenda, which we absolutely treasure.
And Erica, I'm doing what you do every day of the week. You do your full-time jobs and you are co-chairs of the network. So I'm just doing a little bit of what you do every week. So thank you.
Yeah, but a small, setting an example is one way of getting other people to see that how is he managing to do that? Can I also try it? And it can also have a domino effect where more people join in and support the agenda. And like I said in my earlier conversation, my earlier talk, this passion that all of us have is not just a benefit for us. We don't want to take it somewhere for ourselves. We are, putting it into the organization. Cambridge University Hospital is a wonderful organization. And if it has people like ourselves, you shouldn't blow your own trumpet, but I'll blow it. If you've got people like ourselves, then it's going to invite even more people to come to this organization and attract not only the most talented, but also people who are human at heart as well. Because at the end of the day, the business that we do within a hospital is about being human. We're looking after people. And that is why we came to work in this organization. Right, so we've nearly gone for 45 minutes. It's 43 minutes according to my watch. So happy to take questions from people. People can either raise their hands or write in the chat box. I cannot see one yet, but I'll just, in the meantime, I'll just, there's a comment from Mike Moore here, our fantastic chair. Really powerful presentation, building on really significant contributions day in, day out. Thank you. As David and Monica know, I asked for a further conversation at the board in the near future. Yes, Mike, you will get it in the future. As we all know, there is so much to do to take us forward. It would be great if you could be part of that conversation with the board in the near future. Mike Moore, thank you so much, Mike. And, I know you are one of the VSMs who has actually been pushing forward with this agenda in the previous years. Right, I'm happy to take questions from people. Can I just put my deputy chairs on the spot here, Emil or Tracy? So if somebody stopped you, for example, in the corridor and said, oh, what's this BAME network all about? Why should I join it? What's in it for me? I mean, how would you, unpack it for them to be able to want to come and join the network? Because like David said, we've got about 22%, 22.5% of the staff that are working in CUH who come from a BAME background, but the network still needs to grow. How would you, what would you say to someone who doesn't quite understand the purpose of the network? How would you make it clear to them so that they want to join?
I'll answer that one. I think,
Yep.
For me, it's very simple. I think I'll throw it back and say, how do you feel?
Mm.
How do you feel working in this organization? How do you feel you're treated? If they come back and they put a point that there's certain aspects of their work life within the organization there's questions and they feel that there needs to be change, then it would be simply saying, well, be part of something which can create positive change. And as a network, we're here to not support staff like yourselves and take forward those issues, those concerns presented, and look at strategies in best to change culture, change behaviors, change attitudes, and incorporate that within policy, incorporate that in how we treat our patients, how we treat each other, and how we expect patients to treat us, our staff too. So it's encompassed to all those things. So that would be I will simplify it as such, and encourage them to be part of this agenda, which our leaders, our chief exec, our directors are on board of that and looking for positive change and look at the coming years, that we are one of the frontline champions of this agenda across the country and maybe across the world. And we're quite a recognized trust across the world, and we can be forefront in many areas. So yes, I think that would be my answer to that.
Erica, could I just support some of the comments that Emil said?
Yeah.
And I think for me as well, the whole point of being in a position where someone asked the question like, why should I, or what is this BAME network all about, I think is a very indication that BAME staff in general, I think because of entering the workforce and having to deal with the constant repression, and I say that not as in, we're all undergoing disciplinary process or there are major issues across the board, but I think it's just the general acknowledgement that your work life is harder. You have to prove yourself more. I myself, I've been told that a multitude of times. I'm already performing just as well as perhaps a white counterpart, but prove yourself, Tracy. You've got to prove yourself. Mm-hmm. So that these kinds of elements leave BAME staff not even with an expectation. It's just an acknowledgement that, okay, the BAME network's there, but there's no point in me engaging because what's going to change? How is this going to help me? Nothing's going to be any different. So I think one of the things that we need to do, and I'm pleased to be in this forum, and all the work we've done in Black History Month this week will hopefully show people it's been an opportunity to showcase ourselves, talk about all the fantastic work that we do and what's been going on, to show people that actually the BAME network isn't just a tick box here. It's live, it's active, it's vibrant, and we are doing things, and we have just started to move this mountain. So get on the bandwagon, come and have a taster, see what we're about, join us, and help us to turn the boat.
Yeah, I did ask David to go after Tracy, but just before I let you speak, David, so that we don't lose this thread, join us. There's already been a question on how can people join the network. So people, you can join the network. You can see our faces, you can see our names on the screens. Just send us an email if you can't get hold of any of us. We've got very, very good team working with the EDI team, with Monica and Katrina, who never fail to pick up a name that comes in their inbox and add it to the network. So that's one of the ways that you can join. So I hope that answers your question. And failure to that, we do have a website. We do have information on Connect. You can always drop a message into the Connect page and ask for your name to be included on the mailing list. Right, David, would you like to say something?
Thanks, Erica, and I will keep it as brief like just to, I mean, your question was sort of why get involved, or what's the purpose of getting involved. I was hearing that agenda, and I was thinking about emphasizing the stuff I've heard this week about allyship, and I continue to hear about good allyship. So 70% of the workforce who will be listening to this talk won't be from the Black and Asian minority ethnic community. They will be from the white British community, and some of them will be fellow snowy white peaks of the NHS organisation. And I think what you're offering us, what you're asking of us, is to step up. So being an anti-racist organisation isn't being a bystander. It is more. We're asking more of people than being a bystander. And I think one of the speakers talked about being an upstander. Being an anti-racism is an active thing, not a passive thing. And sometimes I found it quite hard to work out when you're sticking your nose in or when you're being a good ally. And I think the framework, which is being widely used now, the 7 A's of allyship, Google it, or Monica will probably put some wonderful link in to that, some TED talk. If you Google it, you'll get to allyship and how to do it well. And I'm putting that out there for everyone in the organization. There is a framework for meaningfully and constructively engaging with this agenda. And the first A is an appetite. And it's asking ourselves whether we have the appetite to immerse ourselves in the world of race and race equality. And that includes about our own race, our own identity, and bringing that to this table of race equality. So I'd like to promote allyship and the concepts and the models around that as important parts of this network's work. Thank you, Erica.
Yeah, thank you. And just to
Erica, sorry to interrupt you. Can I just pick up on a comment which I think is quite important that I saw in the chat? Yeah, I think it was from Lisa, who said that the work sounds exhausting. I think there was a comment from
it
Lisa.
Is exhausting.
So, I just thought it would be worthwhile picking that up. So yes is the short answer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think the long answer is yes, but with purpose. And I think there is nothing that anybody who's ever achieved anything of value, and when I say value, I'm not just talking about financial value here. As you mentioned before, Erica, resourcing isn't just about money. This is about what the potential for the wider impact of what we're driving. As you mentioned, David, we've had many conversations. It's about the past generations, the present, us here, and then the children of tomorrow. So this work that we're doing isn't just about where we stand now. And you can pull this right back to people like the suffragettes, Martin Luther King, the Black Lives Matter campaign. It doesn't matter whoever you are, whatever you stand for, and where Gandhi, whoever, you've tried to achieve anything that's of value, you're never going to do that without that passion, drive, and determination. So the short answer is yes, but the long answer is with purpose and with meaning, with the hope. And this is absolutely with hope, because I think we've never ever before been in a position, Erica, Emil, and I, where we have the access to the VSM level that we have now, that we have the ears of the VSM levels that we have now, that we have the opportunity to actually engage and make these strategic changes. So this is all with hope. And the other point I'd just like to quickly make is, again, this is where the protection bit comes in. And I think there is some work we need to do around that. you know, David and Monica, I know we've spoken about this, Joan, just how our time, our energy, our own mental health, you know, and those of the other unsung heroes, the Ruby Lopez's and the Dysons and the other leaders in the BAME network, the unsung heroes, how they spend their time and then how their time is protected and actually they're rewarded and acknowledged for the work that they do. So I do think there is some work we need to do around that as well. But I hope that answers your question a little bit, Lisa.
Yeah. I hope it answers your question, Lisa. And I'm an African background. And for me, somebody that really resonates with the work that we're doing is Nelson Mandela. Yes, he was exhausted. Yes, he was imprisoned. 20 years in prison was no mean feat. He did not do it because the door was already open so that he can have that conversation to stop apartheid. The door was shut. So the reason we're here, it's the passion and the fire that is driving us to be able to prise that door open and then make the South Africa or the Addenbrooks that we want to create for the people that are coming through. So this is where we are coming from. And I'm glad we have got this far, because this is not where the network had been. If you look at it, maybe 10 years ago, I was also one of those people 10 years ago who said, too exhausting, too tiring, I've got other things to be doing. But at this stage, I just feel, yes, I've got a platform. I'm a senior leader. I can talk to David, I can talk to Lorraine, I can talk to Roland, and I've got other people, you know, other networks. So when you're talking about it being exhausting, it stops being exhausting when there are other allies and there are other teams that you're working with. So this is not an immovable mountain. It's, you know, it can be intimidating. There is a mountain there, but it's a Goliath that can easily, very easily be moved when there is that commitment from people. Yeah.
Can I just add?
Yeah.
I think what we should acknowledge is that conversations are being had.
Yeah.
And that's important. Apart from the platforms, those conversations are being had. And when a conversation is being had, you develop from that conversation and you look at the potential pitfalls, and then you build on that and how you integrate that within policy, within, you know, working cultures, working behaviors, you know, you incorporate all that. So there are steps, and that, yes, the role we take, we do it because we want to make change and positive change.
Mm-hmm.
And I use that word all the time because it is positive change. And it's not for just BAME people, it's for all of us. And I think that's a very important thing. We're not a single group, we're a human race. And I like how Erica used that word, we're all human. So it's just taking this agenda forward, which has been brought to us, given us the opportunity to have that conversation, but also take it forward and make those changes for benefits everyone. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Lisa, who did mention that this is exhausting and unsustainable. Yes, she has acknowledged, saying what wonderful people you are. Thank you. We've also got other comments in the chat box. Thank you so much, all of you. What a truly inspiring conversation. Ewan, thank you so much, Erica, Emil, and Tracy. I feel energized to try to be a better ally. I'll seek you out, Ewan. I know where you are. Yes, we're running out of time. It's getting to 1 o'clock. So as long as my other three panelists haven't got any final words, I'll draw this to a close. Any final words, David, Tracy?
Well, I think it's probably, I've said it in my chat, I just want to say thank you. This is a session to get to know the network chairs, and hopefully it's been an interesting conversation to listen to. It's been really lovely to be part of, and to feel that energy firsthand from the three of you. So mainly thank you for stepping into this leadership space. Thank you for doing this. It feels very passionate and positive and constructive going forward with you. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
And
Thank you.
yes, anyone
Thank you.
come and speak to us, send us emails. We're here to have, we're here. Just come and speak to us.
Yeah, and also don't wait until you're in a fix before you come to
reach out.
I think by that time it's a bit late, but not that it can't be fixed, but you just want to make those connections with people in the good and in the bad times, so that when the fix comes, you're already known to the network, and we can quickly sort out something if it's a problem, sort it out before it actually becomes a problem. Yeah,
and I think as well, it's about valuing people, isn't it? And you're valued. You are. It doesn't matter who you are absolutely valued. And it was one of the speakers, I think, I can't remember who said it now, but it was like, you don't actually know what you can do until you're given the opportunity. You don't actually know what you can achieve until you're Sani Aliu. I think it was Sani. Yeah. So join the network. Let's see what we can do. You've had an insight into what Erica, Emil and I are doing. Join us and see what you can do to contribute to this. There's much more, you're worth so much more, give yourself a shot. Yeah. And David, I just want to say finally, it's a pleasure to work with you and the senior leaders that we've had the opportunity to engage with. Thank you for your time, yourself, to Joan, Monica. Every engagement is always positive, and this is so positive. And I thank you, and I look forward to, moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the comms team. Judith, you've been wonderful. You've made this happen, and thank you so much. And I give you permission to still call yourself a new member of staff for a year. But in your newness, you're still doing a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you.